Air France Flight 117 was a scheduled international flight from Paris to Santiago, Chile, with multiple stopovers, including Lisbon, the Azores, and Pointe-à-Pitre, Guadeloupe. On June 22, 1962, the Boeing 707 operating the flight tragically crashed into a mountain on approach to Pointe-à-Pitre, killing all 113 passengers and crew on board. The investigation later determined that poor navigation in bad weather was the primary cause of the disaster, highlighting the critical importance of precise instrument use and situational awareness during challenging approach conditions. The Boeing 707, a popular and reliable long-haul aircraft, was designed to handle a variety of weather conditions and operational challenges. However, like all aircraft, it required precise piloting, especially during approach and landing. The region around Pointe-à-Pitre featured difficult terrain, with mountains and unpredictable weather patterns making navigation particularly challenging. The crash of Flight 117 would later serve as a stark reminder of the dangers of miscalculations in instrument navigation and approach procedures. On the night of the crash, Flight 117 had already completed several legs of its journey without incident. The flight crew was experienced, and the aircraft had undergone all necessary pre-flight checks. However, as the plane approached Pointe-à-Pitre, weather conditions deteriorated. Heavy rain and thunderstorms created poor visibility, forcing the crew to rely primarily on their instruments to execute a safe approach. Instrument navigation is critical in such conditions, as pilots must follow precise altitudes, headings, and descent profiles to avoid obstacles and ensure a controlled landing. However, during this approach, something went terribly wrong. Instead of descending safely towards the runway, the aircraft veered off course and began descending towards mountainous terrain. The pilots, possibly disoriented by the weather and misled by navigational readings, were unaware of the impending danger. As the aircraft continued its approach, it unknowingly descended below the minimum safe altitude. The rain and clouds obscured any visual warning that they were too low, and by the time the pilots realized their mistake, it was too late. The Boeing 707 crashed into a mountain, instantly killing all 113 people on board. The impact was devastating, with the wreckage scattered across the rugged terrain. Rescue operations were hampered by the remote location and adverse weather conditions. It took hours for search teams to reach the crash site, and when they did, they found no survivors. The scene was one of complete devastation, with the aircraft completely destroyed upon impact. The loss of so many lives sent shockwaves through the aviation industry and led to an immediate investigation into the causes of the accident. Investigators focused on several key factors, including the flight crew's navigational decisions, the role of air traffic control, and the possibility of mechanical failure. The final report concluded that the primary cause of the crash was pilot error due to poor navigation in bad weather. The crew had deviated from the prescribed approach path and had descended below the minimum safe altitude without realizing it. One major contributing factor was spatial disorientation, a dangerous condition that occurs when pilots lose their sense of position relative to the ground due to limited visibility. In severe weather conditions, pilots must rely entirely on their instruments, as visual cues can be misleading. In this case, the crew either misinterpreted their instruments or failed to follow the proper approach procedure, leading them directly into the mountain. Another issue highlighted by the investigation was the need for more advanced navigation aids and approach procedures in challenging environments. At the time, many airports relied on basic radio navigation systems that required pilots to manually interpret signals and adjust their approach accordingly. Errors in interpretation or small miscalculations could have deadly consequences, as seen in the crash of Flight 117. Following the accident, significant improvements were made to navigational procedures, particularly in areas with difficult terrain and unpredictable weather. More advanced radar systems and instrument landing systems, ILS, were introduced, allowing for greater precision in approach and landing. Additionally, pilot training programs were enhanced to emphasize the importance of strict adherence to instrument procedures, especially in low-visibility conditions. The crash of Flight 117 was not just a technical failure, but also a human tragedy. Families of the victims were left devastated, seeking answers as to how such a disaster could occur. Air France and aviation authorities worked to ensure that the lessons learned from this accident would lead to improvements in flight safety, helping to prevent similar tragedies in the future. Aviation safety has always been an evolving process, with each accident leading to improvements in technology, procedures, and training. The loss of Flight 117 reinforced the critical importance of precise navigation and adherence to instrument procedures, especially in difficult weather conditions. While the passengers and crew of Flight 117 could not be saved, their legacy lives on in the safety measures that emerged as a result of this tragedy.